Hey gang, it's Leila here from the Comic Connection for this week's comic book reviews. First up, we've got Red Robin #1, written by Christopher Yost and art by Ramon Bach. In this one, Tim Drake sets out on his own, angry that Dick chose Damien over him for his new Robin. And Tim has taken on the mantle of Tim Wayne, and his alter ego is Red Robin. He fights crime all the while trying to find Bruce, convinced that he's still alive, and all the while someone is watching over his shoulder. This is a really good book, actually. I like the art. The story is pretty interesting. I think that we can all identify with his search for Bruce, which, you know, this year could turn into that, or it could be just the year of the new Batman. Who's to say? But I found this really interesting. Definitely a must-read for the new Batman stories that are going on. Next up, we've got Resurrection #1. It's written by Mark Guggenheim and the art's by Justin Greenwood. This is actually book 2 in a series, but it's a friendly jump on for new readers, so that's what I am, so here we go with the review. In this issue, we witness the beginning of an alien invasion and then jump forward 10 years when the bugs seem to have left, and a small group of survivors emerge from underground and try and put civilization back together, finding that that's not as easy as it seems. I really like this. The art style really fits the story of the book. It gives it a real mood, the story is really gut-wrenching at times. I really enjoyed it. If you are a fan of those alien invasion kind of things, this is a really good book. Next up, we've got The Veil #1, written by El Torres and art by Gabriel Hernandez. In this one, Christine Luna, talks to ghosts. She helps them resolve their issues, which doesn't really pay well, all the while trying to resolve some of her own issues about being the sole survivor of a horrific train accident. She returns home to settle affairs of her dead aunt, and finds out that her aunt's death wasn't so natural. I kind of like this story, even though it's got that whole Ghost Whisperer feel, which I've never really been interested in, but this is sort of darker. I didn't really like the art style, though. It doesn't really help the story for me, but if you're a fan of this kind of genre book, you could do worse. This is a pretty good read. And next up, we've got X-Men Forever #1, written by Chris Claremont and art by Tom Grummett. We pick up after Chris Claremont's run back in the 80s. We're going to catch up here after Fabian Cortez has betrayed Magneto and Magneto has passed away. Now the X-Men have to reestablish themselves in a world that fears their kind, and they have to do it all with Nick Fury watching them all the time and second-guessing their every move. Meanwhile, Jean is consumed by her growing attraction to Logan, and the team finally captures Cortez, but the cost could be too much to bear. I thought this was a really beautifully drawn book. This is a return to classic X-Men storytelling, and I know some people are not fans of Chris Claremont, but I actually really enjoyed this. So if you're an X-Men fan and you want to get back to those 80s kind of storytelling, this is definitely the book for you. And last but not least, we have something special. This is Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. It's written by Jane Austen and Seth Grahame-Smith, and there's some interior illustrations as well that are hilarious. So basically, it's still the same kind of story. Elizabeth Bennet meets Mr. Darcy, but there's zombies involved. She's been trained by a Chinese monk to slaughter them, and so is Mr. Darcy, but her mission is sort of thrown off just by meeting him. This is a really, really hilarious book. If you've seen it on the bookshelves, it's a definite must-read. I mean, it's basically Pride and Prejudice, so you really have to like that. But the zombie stuff is so intricately woven and really seamless and really funny that you just have to read it. Pick it up.
Hey folks, Jim here with this week's comic book reviews. First up, Toy Story #1, written by Dan Jolly with art by Chris Moreno. In this one, Woody, Buzz, and the gang encounter a strange egg-shaped toy and try to figure out just what it is and what its intentions are. I really had a lot of fun with this book. It's great for all ages, but especially if you have a kid, they're going to love this to death. So if you're a Toy Story fan, check this one out. The art's really nice, story's fun. It's great for all ages. Next up, Buck Rogers #1, written by Scott Beatty with art by Carlos Rafael. In this one, Buck crash lands into the far-flung future and is soon rescued by a mysterious girl named Wilma. But soon the two have to deal with being hunted down by the pack. Okay, I've never liked Buck Rogers. I will be upfront with that right now, but I really like this book so far. Good story, great art. So far everything's ending up fantastically well for this book. So I'm really looking forward to the next issue. Story was pretty good, art fantastic, as I said. So if you're a Buck Rogers fan, try this one out. You're going to enjoy it.
Hi everyone, it's Crystal with this week's comic book reviews. Starting up, we have Trinity, Blood on the Sands, which is a one-shot. with story by Philip W. Smith II and art by Mitchell, Wijaya, and Grindberg. I hope that's Wijaya. I have no idea. Anyways, the art and the story of this Witchblade title are both good. This is my first exposure to Witchblade, and I actually found it really interesting. It's a good book if you haven't read a lot of the backstory, because you don't need to. It's kind of a standalone, being a one-shot. The cover, I think, is beautiful, and I'm interested in Witchblade now. I will read more Witchblade because of this book, so good on you guys. Definitely one to think about. Next up, we have Ender's Game, a one-shot called Recruiting Valentine. For those of you that have been following the Ender's Game comic book series, or who have read Ender's Game the book, which I highly recommend, Valentine is Ender's little sister. So this story is all about what's going on with Valentine while Ender is in battle school. Very interesting, very well written, and I think that the art is really a unique style. I haven't seen this kind of sort of coloring before, and I really enjoyed it. And if you like Ender's Game, or if you want to get introduced to Ender's Game, I would highly recommend this one shot. And last, but certainly not least, we have Rebels #5 with story by Tony Bellavand and art by Claude St. Aubin. The art I really enjoyed. The story I didn't get so much. I think that maybe because I've never read a Rebels title before, and it seems very complicated, and there are a lot of characters. I didn't really understand the dynamics, but perhaps if you are a Rebels fan and you know what's going on, it's really interesting. From an outside perspective, 2 thumbs down on story. Thanks very much, guys.